Hello, welcome to Inking on the Fly with me, Amy Jasper. Thanks for joining me. Today I want to share this super fun and very unique fold. This is a twist and turn card. If you Google that, you will find a few of these out there in the interwebs. It's a very unique fold in that it's one piece of cardstock to create this look of having two pieces. So they are designed to sit. It's hard to show on my video with my tabletop, but they're designed to sit like that. Or if I hold it up to my face, well, you can see. It's hard to see. It gets lots of, there we go. It's hard to see that way. Anyways, it's a unique way for a card to be displayed. It will kind of look like that. The front piece tends to fold a little bit to the left a little bit. So whatever you put on this piece, it's not going to be straight up and down. It'll be at a little bit of a jaunty kind of angle. So I get the pleasure of sharing how to create this card and the products that I use for this card. So let's get started. Okay, so we have, if you have a kit from me, you will have all these elements in your kit. So pull out your card base material. This is Mossy Meadow, and it measures your standard size, 8.5. I better double check. 8.5 by 5.5, so pretty standard. And it has all these score lines on it. So if you're starting from scratch, let me grab my scoring tool here. And the scoring stylus, which of course fell on the floor. There we go. So the scoring tool is very handy for this, but any scoring, tool that you have will work, of course. So what you're going to do is you're going to score. This is done for you already if it's in your kit, but if you want to make this again, you need to know how it's done, right? So on the 5.5 inch side, you're going to score at 2 3/4 all the way down. And then on the 8.5 inch side, we're going to score again at 2 3/4 all the way down. But then we're going to score at 4 inches all the way down. Okay, so now we'd have the one going across the middle and then the two intersecting it. Then we have these unusual score lines going diagonally. There are a couple of ways you can create those lines. One, if you don't have the Simply Scored tool, then you can line up this center piece with this end of this scoring line at the edge of your card in your paper trimmer and score down. You want to really make sure that you're lined up well though, because if you're not, you're going to end up with the folds not folding quite right or gets more fraying than you need to be having. The card does fray a little bit on the corners. It's a little bit of a tough, it's hard to avoid that, but to avoid it, it's important that you have those score lines that they line up nicely. So that's one way. Another way is to just lay it on a table, put your ruler over top and draw your score line and then just work that fold. But what I found worked really well for me, and hopefully this translates well to you, is I just put my middle score line, I just pick a random, the 6 mark is about halfway on this Simply Scored tool. So I just lay that line on the 6 inch mark, so it lines up with the 6 inches. And then I place my scoring stylus in the center of that. Then, this is sort of a weird way to do it, but it works. Then I just slide that down, holding my stylus in that 6 inch groove still. And then I can just twist until this the line that I'm intersecting with is lined up at that 6-inch mark. Then I can score. You see that? Really easy. So I'm going to do that again, but now I want to do this line. So I have to actually flip this around, line it up with that, line this line up, the end of it with that 6-inch mark again, and score. And that's how I created those diagonal score lines. It makes it a lot easier instead of trying to do it with a ruler and not getting the, I just find the Simply Scored tool does a beautiful job of getting really deep score marks, which I find very helpful. So once you have all of those scored, you can fold those, and you're going to fold them all directions. So we fold one way, then we flip it and fold the other. This card does tend to sit nicer if the folds have been kind of thoroughly manipulated. So I folded that both directions, and I'm going to do the same for all of my folds. We'll start with all of the ones that are 90-degree folds, and then I'll do those corner folds or the diagonal folds. So I've done every fold twice. We want those to be kind to us and behave themselves. So whatever you scored last, that's the direction it's going to want to fold though. Okay, so then if I turn it this way, I can work on these score lines here. So what I can do is, because these have all been scored, this will sort of fold, giving me room to work in there. You see how that works? Hopefully that's translating well on screen here. And then I can work that fold. While it's there, I might as well go ahead and do the other side. And then I can flip it over and do those folds again, going the other direction. And just really, I want them to just be really easy to move when I am working, or when this card is on display. I want them to be relaxed. Okay, so now we have a bunch of these cards, these folded, so they're quite movable, which is great. This is where you have to really watch the screen, because it is kind of difficult to show you, and some videos show it better than others, and I'm hoping that I'm one of those that will show it better. But if you imagine, let me think about this. Okay, so if this center fold here is a valley fold, okay, let me think this through. Okay, that's a valley fold. These two, pardon me, these creases here, they're going to be mountain folds, so they fold up, okay. Then the diagonal folds, these two, they're going to be valley folds, so they fold down. This fold here is a mountain fold, so it's going to fold up toward me, okay. Then we can move these two sections, we can just have them go up and down toward the table, so perpendicular to the table, and work having all those folds how I just described with the mountains and the valleys. Got it? Okay. And then we can pinch this side closed at the same time as we pinch this closed. Do, 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 do. And then we end up like that. So let's do that again. So we have this one up towards us. We've got our mountains and our valleys and our mountain. Okay, that we press so that it is like that. Right? And then while it's like that, we're going to close the card, but also close this front card at the same time. And it will be like that. If we close them like this, that's okay. We just then have to push that over. So it might fold like that. You just have to move that over like that. So hopefully that's helpful. And you will get a little bit of fraying down here, most likely, and a little bit over here, most likely. That's just the way this kind of design goes. I find if this is over just a little bit more, I might get less of a fray there. But that's something that you can maybe work on and see if you can. It's all about that score line, that diagonal score line. Getting it right will reduce the fray. I think mine could have been over a little bit more. So if I'm looking at how I'm manipulating this now, how I want this to be a little bit over, I don't know, this might confuse me. Anyways, that might give me a hint to how to score it differently next time. So something to work on. There's always something to work on. Okay, so there's our card base. So you'll notice it's not laying very flat compared to my final card. Lays quite a bit flatter. That's just as you work it and work those creases and folds, it will start relaxing a little bit more. I can go in. I'm going to be working on the cards, so it's going to be opened and closed and all this, but I can go in and really work those creases in the direction that they now are folded, and that will help that card relax as well. And those inside ones, harder to find in there. Okay. So even there, it's laying a little bit flatter. Okay. So then we can decorate it. So that's the hard part, really. The hard part is getting it, so getting that fold. Don't unfold it because you might not be able to fold it again. Keep that in mind. You might want to practice that though, in case the person who opens it unfolds it and then can't put it back together. Okay. So also I have other elements for this card, which I will gather the elements. I have 2 pieces of Blushing Bride. These measure 4 1/4 by 2.5 inches. So there's 2 of those pieces. Those are going to go in on the front and on the inside of my card. But before I put them in there, I'm going to layer them with the pieces that go on top of them. So I've got 2 pieces. One is a basic white, and that measures 4 1/8 by 2 3/8. And that way that will be a nice matte, or have a nice border, a thin border around it when it's adhered to that Blushing Bride. And then I have a piece of the Whimsy and Wonder Designer Series paper. We're going to use the holly side of this one. It has a bit of an iridescent foil on there, which is really pretty. And that's, again, 4 1/8 by 2 3/8. So those I'm going to glue to those Blushing Bride pieces. Like that. And like that. And then those can glue in my card. So keeping my card folded so I know where I'm putting them in the right place, I can adhere the patterned one to the front underneath this flap, right? If you have it centered with a nice even border around it on the top and the side, then you don't have to worry about what the other end looks like, because that's not going to really be seen. So I have a little bit of adhesive over here. I'll deal with that once it's dry. I can erase that with my adhesive gummy eraser tool. And then the white and Blushing Bride, it's going to go inside the card. Like that. Okay, so those are those elements. Now we can put some of the pieces on the front of our card. I have a piece of Blushing Bride for the front. This one is 2 1/2 by 2 1/2 inches. And then I have this velvety paper. This is Snowy White Velvet Sheets is what it's called. It's in the mini Stampin' Up catalog, the July to December catalog. It's soft, like it's a flocked kind of velvety paper. It's a little too clean for me. I want to distress it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is take my scissors and use the edge of my scissors kind of like I'm shaving the side of the paper. If this is a straight razor, I don't know if you've ever, I've never used a straight razor, but you know, you watch it on TV, you kind of know how to do it, right? Maybe. So basically you're keeping it, the scissors are perpendicular to the paper this way, but when you are dragging it across, you can angle the scissors slightly to the paper rather than having it straight and dragging it across. Just give it a bit of an angle, and then you can work that paper just to distress the edge of it. It just creates a little more texture and interest and kind of makes it more, I guess, noticeable that it's not just regular paper too. People will maybe take note of, oh, what's going on back there? And they'll see, oh wait, this paper is soft and velvety. How cool. All right, that looks pretty good. I can clear away my debris. And then that piece is going to just glue to the front of my card. Easy peasy. That's adding some nice texture. And that way too, if you do have a little bit of fraying, it just is part of the process. If there's fraying on this and fraying on that, it all works together, right? I think so. Awesome. Okay, to the front of that, I want to attach my snowflake. It's from the Wonderful Snowflakes. They're all little die cut, well, they're all the same size, die cut snowflakes. I don't remember how many there are. I want to say, I don't even know. I'll have to look. I'd have to look to see for sure. But there's quite a few of them. And they are iridescent, so they have that little bit of, I don't know, a shimmery iridescence to them. Other side is just basic white or white. I don't know if it's actually basic white, but it's white on the other side. So I'm just going to use some of my Tombow liquid glue, which I find works the best because I'm attaching this to the velvety paper. The Tombow liquid glue seems to do a really good job. And I'm choosing to have it a little bit jaunty. I like that word jaunty instead of crooked. Crooked has a negative connotation, whereas jaunty is like, that's joyful and playful. Crooked is, evil and, well, not evil, but, bad and something we usually avoid. But jaunty, we can do jaunty. Okay, so I've made sure that that's connected really well. Okay, so then we need to get out our ink and a blending brush. So I'm just going to set that aside. And I'm going to use Flirty Flamingo Ink. And my blending brush. This inking technique would work great with a sponge dauber as well, maybe better just because a sponge dauber is smaller. But I have my blending brush handy, so it just works for me. So I'm just going to grab a scrap piece of paper here so that I can keep my other paper clean. I have a strip of Blushing Bride. This one is 3/4 wide by 4 3/8 long. That's going to have my sentiment on it. So I'm going to sponge just around the edges with my blending brush or sponge dauber or sponge, whatever tools you have that you like to use for this kind of thing. I really like the blending brushes though. I encourage you to look into getting a blending brush because they are a much softer, more blended look. You get less, you can still get kind of like the oopsies where you end up with an intense color somewhere by accident, but you don't get the streaking like you do with sponges sometimes, or the edges of a sponge dauber. Sometimes you end up with those edges of the sponge kind of being sharper when you're sponging like this. So this is quite, I find it quite forgiving. It lays down the ink lightly too, so it's just a little easier to control. So there I've got some ink on there, and I want to do my trees. If you have the kit from me, you will have 4 trees. 2 are tall and skinny, and 2 are short and chubby. So we're just going to sponge around the edges of those trees. These are from the Christmas trees die. They coordinate and are part of the Whimsy and Wonder suite. So they coordinate, they're designed to go with the stamp set. What is the stamp set called? I don't have it handy to be able to tell you what it's called. Anyways, it's in the catalog with the Whimsy and Wonder set. Oh, here it is. Whimsical Trees is what the stamp set that this goes with. It's very cute. So the Whimsical Trees stamp set and the trees, Christmas tree dies. So we're just sponging the edges. It just gives these trees a little more, just makes them a little more interesting. And it goes along with that, the fraying and the crafty kind of feel that our card has. So I'm going to do all 4 of them. Only 3 of these will be on the front of my card, and 1 of them is going to be on the inside. What? Yes, sometimes. Sometimes. I don't do it very often, you guys, but sometimes I do decorate the inside of a card. All right, I think that's pretty good. So we'll put those aside. We still need our ink because we're going to do our sentiment, which I didn't grab. So I better grab my sentiment. I chose to use the fa la 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 stamp. You know, fa la 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 la, that stamp. Hopefully you can sing that better than me. It's kind of a tough song. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Probably just me. Okay. Stamp. And so we've got the fa la 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 stamp from the, did I tell you what that was? Holly Jolly Wishes stamp set. So that's going to stamp on the right side of my label or my strip of paper, and give it a little bit of space on the side, but not too much. You want it pretty close. And that's stamped with that Flirty Flamingo ink again. All right, we're doing good. Where'd my card go? There it is. Okay, the fa la 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 will go on the inside of my, or the front of my card with dimensionals. And I think it's about, I don't know, the top of it ends up being about halfway up. I'm going to open this up so I can see where I'm going here. Maybe. There we go. So I'm going to place it about there, and I want it to be flush with the edge of my card. That's my goal here. Like that. So it's not much on its own that way, but once we get that back in position, it's fancy. It's fancy like that. Okay, let's put our trees on. So because this section of the card doesn't lay flat for me, I'm just going to take a block just to help hold it down, because then I have more control of as I'm putting my trees on. For the front of the card, I'm going to use 2 of the tall skinny trees and one of the short chubby trees. And what I like to do is kind of place those on without glue first, just so I can get a feel for where I want them to be. Which is kind of like that ish. They don't want to stay there. Kind of like that. But the one in the middle, I'm going to put it on a dimensional, and the ones on the sides, I'm just going to put down directly. So now that I know where that one's going to go, I will pop that out of the way. And then once I've laid them down, I can trim the bottoms a little bit to my liking. And there are little holes in this paper, in these dies, on the trees. So just be aware of that when you're using your liquid glue. Not that I'm trying to place it a special way or anything, but it might try to ooze out if you have too much glue there. Okay, so then one of our short chubby trees here is going to have dimensionals. I can squeak on 2 mini dimensionals, so I will do that. And that guy's gonna go right about there. His tail, his trunk is a little bit shorter, so I want to make sure that I'm not up here for this. I mean, you could, but I'm trying to avoid having that tree go up past where I want it to be. So I'm going to have it line up flush with the snowy white velvet paper there. Like that. Cuteness. Okay, and then I can go ahead and trim my other tails so that they also line up with that snowy white paper. Like so. Then I have a piece of baker's twine. This is just white baker's twine, and it's about 8 inches long. You can either tie it in a bow and then attach it with a glue dot, or you can tie it directly to the middle tree at the base of the stem. Just be careful because that tree is very delicate, and I didn't glue down the stem because it's so narrow. The trunk of the tree is so narrow that it would have just gotten messy. Not sure what happened there. Okay, hopefully we can make this work. I was just finishing up and my video stopped, so I'm not sure what's happening. I don't know when it stopped, but it wasn't working anymore. Okay. Inside this card, you could even adhere a gift card. Whoops. You could stick a gift card in the top. So it's cute for that purpose as well. All right, there you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you make lots of these. Have a good one.